everybody. Welcome to Art Salon. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Elizabeth Reed. A few people know her very, very well, and a lot of other people don't know her at all. Elizabeth is a very fine artist who uses painting and drawing. She does very, to me, elegant, graceful, delicate, very detailed drawings of people and nature, and they interweave in very interesting ways and have things to do with the environment and the world we live in. And she calls it visual archaeology. She'll tell you a little bit more about that. I had talked to her about doing a presentation on her work, and then suddenly she disappeared and she went to Italy for a year. Poor thing. Her husband's work took her there, and she was forced to live in Italy for a full year. And Jerry and I were planning a trip to Switzerland and had a plan to see Art Basel. And Elizabeth and I were friends on Facebook, and were keeping track of each other's. I was keeping track of her travels, and learned that she was going to be there too. And our visits did not overlap. We were going to try to meet there, and it didn't happen. So she was there on Friday and Saturday, and I was there for the last day on Sunday. And we wanted to find out what the other saw. So we decided that probably a lot of other people would want to do that too. Elizabeth is going to go first and give you her Friday and Saturday in Basel. And then I'll talk afterwards. Elizabeth Reed.
Okay, first of all, I'm Elizabeth Reed, like you heard. This is some of my old work from a series called Vestiges, where I took off on a spine. So you'll see I'm very interested in bones and innards and stuff. I combine drawing and painting at this stage. I'm moving into another phase right now. One of my larger drawings, it's 5 feet tall, graphite, called Zephyr, combining alternative energy images, trying to look for similar shapes in nature as you see in a machine to bring a point across. These are Gifts from the Sea, a series I did after Anne Morrow Lindbergh's book called Gifts from the Sea, where it was the Lindbergh baby's mom, and she took a sabbatical to Sanibel Island from her house in Connecticut and wrote about the similarities between seashells and the stages of a woman's life. So I made my own seashells up and used 3 words: cradle, shield, and vessel. So some of these are cradles, some of them are shields, and some of them are vessels. They're small. And here's me with the guy I took my workshop from in Italy, David John Casson, who won 3rd place at the BP portrait exhibit in London. So there's me with a selfie of his 3rd place painting. I studied with him when I was in Italy. I study with Stephen Assail frequently. He's one of my favorite painters and drawer. I used to teach here and was his assistant when he was here. So drawing and painting is really kind of something I'm very interested in, especially figuratively. These are some of the pieces I started to do after that workshop, working more with tone than line. And I'm interested in reacting to my time in Italy, which I'll share with you a little bit. This piece was chosen in Artist Journey Portraits, which is a takeoff on Strokes of Genius. So it will be out in December. It's published. It's just a short sketch that I did one day with all the girls in my studio, and bingo, it got in. So I'm very happy about that. So this is why I was in Italy. My husband, Phil, is one of the top engineers that raised the wreck of the Costa Concordia. And here is the first summer in Giglio Island with the ship. It's been aground since January 13th, 2012 it went aground, and it killed 31 people. 1 person has not been found yet. He was one of the original engineers that helped design this. You can see the little box on the side of the ship. That's his office. It gets moved around. So every day I'd go up to the top of the hill and wave hello to him, but at this point you couldn't see him. So at this point they're building the thing underneath it to roll it over. This is on the ship, the Costa Concordia. It was underwater. Here it is still on its side from the hill. Here's Phil on the side of the ship after it's been parbuckled, meaning it got rolled over. There she is floating and getting ready to go. So that's the end of my grand experience that brought me to Italy for 3 summers and for the entire year last year. So I got a chance to cruise around and work and really, really enjoy my husband too. So one of the things that I decided to do was to get in the car and drive to Basel, which is about 8 hours. And that's not even going to Tallahassee to drop my kids off to school. It wasn't a big deal. I like it to drive through Italy. It's really great. And Switzerland is very beautiful. This is the exhibition hall. This is walking up to the exhibition. This area up in front with the white veils is a place for you to sit. And it is occupied by people most of the time, which is, there's quite a few places like that throughout the whole venue where people can gather and discuss things, because art is meant to bring people together. That's what they say about these art fairs. Trudy Bruckner, Balz Hilt, and Ernst Beyeler, Fondation Beyeler, they were the ones that really started deciding to make a really high-end art fair in Basel, and one that would stay. And so they wanted it to continually be excellent work and different work, so that you wouldn't get bored with it. Because there's other satellite art fairs, as we well know about our Art Basel. There's a million things going around it, but they wanted to keep it really consistent and really engaging. Each spot is juried every year by high-end gallerists, and there's about 3 or 4 galleries going for each spot, so it's pretty competitive. And they don't always get in. And it's a smaller venue than we have here. Is it like the beginning? You can see the clock, it opens at 11. So I was just walking around taking pictures. Seven Sisters Art Shop, but you can see the reflection of the sitting area there. And across the street, this is looking back underneath the hotel there. If you go back, you can see the hotel is right there where that tall building is. To the right of there is the hotel. And there's an old-fashioned carnival across the street. That was kind of interesting. You know, here you have this really high-tech. And this sign is really fascinating to me. It says like 3,501 colored pencils. I thought that was kind of neat. That's what that is. Here's where you eat lunch. In the inside of the building, it's also set up with a raised area besides the table area where you can sit on AstroTurf. So you feel like you're really kind of sitting in a park talking. I sat next to a woman who was young. She was from Paris, and she worked with Sotheby's. And she was checking out a couple galleries. And so it was really nice to be able to talk to people. I think that was one of the ideas behind how they designed the building. And here's a shot from the second story looking down. You can see Jeff Koons' Hulk. You know, Jeff Koons is very popular. He has all these, it's a little overdone, but you know, blow-up toys now. Blow-up toys are cool, and they sell for a lot of money. And you can see the reflections of the lunch area in there, 2 stories of it. And here's one of my favorite people. She has this costume on. It looks like she has one for every year in character. Okay, here's my walk. I did not expect to do a lecture. I take pictures of things because I want to use them in my work. I want to investigate an artist. So this has been a really good experience for me because it forced me to research all of the artists. And I fell in love with a couple of them. So I'll show you. I like the idea of enclosing things in boxes. One of the things I want to react to, my experience, is the image of the Madonna, and how in Italy you see the Madonna inserted in the walls of buildings, and she's a protector. So I want to work with my visual archaeology ideas, bringing in other images as well as figurative work. Here's another box. I thought that was interesting. Scott Campbell. Scott Campbell is a tattoo artist from Brooklyn. He's a very good tattoo artist, and he's also a fine artist. And so now what he's done is he started to carve out of these layers and layers of sheets of $1 bills. And I hadn't seen a dollar bill in a while, so it was like, wow. Yeah, it kind of wakes you up when you see it. It's strange. But, you know, this kind of like a coffin, in a way, set up. Very tattoo artist-like. These are kind of iconic images. If you look at Art Basel 45, you'll see these all in there. You know. I'm not sure, but I would bet my bottom dollar this is Anish Kapoor, who I'm from Chicago, so he's like one of my big guys. And Jean Tinguely. I've seen him in many places in my travels, the Biennale in Venice. I just saw him on TV on Globetrotters in Nice. You know, he's in Chicago. He's everywhere. He's great. He does drawings. He does sculpture. He does costume and set design for operas, which I find amazing. And out of all the exhibits I've seen in my travels, I'm starting to realize that there are a few artists in the world that really encompass so many different ways of expressing themselves and our culture. In particular, Jean-Paul Gaultier in London, I mean, just the designing of his clothes is like beyond couture. It's like it absorbs the environment around it. And Nadine and I just saw the David Bowie exhibit. The guy takes off on music and theater and, you know, costume design and mime and music and writing and everything. It's kind of an interesting way to really appreciate certain artists that encompass what our society's doing at the time. It's very strong. This is an interesting room. This is a painting with 3 Indian guys. This woman, I fell in love with her work. I don't know how to speak German, so I'll probably butcher her name. Jorinde Vogt, maybe? She does these incredibly intense drawings, and they're deconstructions of ideas, poetry, imagery, music. She was a musician for a while. She played the cello. And so a lot of it, the beautiful markings that are seem to have some kind of structure to them, you know? And in between that, she paints in between the drawings. I was drawn immediately to her work. Of course, I do a lot of drawing, so of course I'm going to look at that kind of thing. She sold a lot of stuff too. These I thought were interesting. The intensity and the delicacy of them. If you're interested in her, look her up. She's really very intense person. She's German. She works in Berlin. She kind of works like she works from a music score. It's kind of interesting. It's structured drawings. I was interested in this painting. This guy's also a filmmaker and a painter from France. It's something I want to use in my work, probably, the idea of flying through the passageway. This woman will be representing Japan in the next Venice Biennale. These are 2 dresses in a box, and this weaving is just incredible. She's done with a lace-like kind of a netting or a web. And she takes these into big installations, into big rooms, and they're very powerful. So I'm sure it will be an incredible exhibit. When you look up Art Basel 45, you'll see this guy every time. So I thought it was interesting. He scratched on a hood with Michael Bormans. He's a painter. I just thought it was interesting the way he used the 2 different views of the woman and put them together. Painterly, too. Marcus Schinwald. He has a series of paintings done in this manner with all different sorts of paraphernalia put on the faces, on the heads. It's very disturbing images, but beautifully painted. So, Jed Quinn is one of my favorites now. He's English, and he's been trained in a classical manner. And he's really interested in how the notion that ideas travel through time. So I have these really classical landscapes, and then these are stills from movies in boxes, digitized images and stuff like that, but he paints them, and he paints beautifully. He has studied extensively in England, in the Ruskin School, the Slade School, and he went to Dusseldorf to study, and Amsterdam. So he's got the classical background of a painter, and he did a series actually of vanitas paintings, which are still lifes, and in the vase is like the still from a movie. It's like painted in black and white. It's like, why is that there? You know, it's kind of like what I do with my work, where I put different things in there and meld them together, but in a much more intense manner. I was incredibly impressed with his work. When I looked into it, I was just drawn to his paintings, and then when I did a little more research on him, he's somebody I'm probably going to follow. This is Unlimited. Unlimited was started in 2000. It's the big, big project hall, the big installation hall. And so a lot of this stuff just blows you away. That's just walking into it. This was a driftwood circle project. Richard Long had collected this driftwood along the river Avon, and that's a photograph of where he was walking. And this installation travels, so each one of these pieces of wood is flat on the bottom, and they are specifically placed in that spot. So he gives directions on where they need to go at all places. So the size of it is just incredible. That kind of makes the whole piece really much more stunning to you when you walk up to it. This is a really beautiful mobile that was in the entrance, and the light playing on it and the movement, just a little bit of air got it moving, so it was like really a beautiful experience to watch it. You know, it's very peaceful. Kara Walker, I'm sure everyone knows her. This is Ellie's photograph of what was in front of it, but it was a massive. Kara Walker deals with silhouettes, and the whole idea of a silhouette to her is that you can say a lot with a little information, and she also feels that that's the same way you feel about a stereotype. You say a lot with just a little information. I took a video of it with my iPad, so kind of neat to see it in context with the whole room. About discrimination and sexual taking advantage of slaves, and the whole experience of being an African American to her. Very powerful work. She has a piece, I don't know if it's still there, the one in Brooklyn of the Sphinx of the Big Mammy, made out of sugar in the Domino Sugar Factory, and with it are the little slaves that are made out of molasses carrying sugar around, and meanwhile this building is falling apart and molasses is dripping down the sides. I mean, it's really incredible, and it's been, people have taken selfies right next to her bottom and, you know, done some really horrible things, but I think it was kind of, it's interesting, she's a very powerful artist. She won the MacArthur Genius Prize at the age of 27. I thought that was a pretty incredible feat. So anyway, this, I don't know who did this, but it was weird. And you know, if I draw bones, I'm going to be attracted to weird things like this, you know. So it's interesting to see the way people react to it too, you know. Just like, what in the world? Okay, these guys they have created this space. They actually make films, and these are characters. They make up these characters, and these guys are like, he explains who they are. They're like the ones that hang around, and they're dirty, and they smell like alcohol, and their pants are down there. So he's made up all these kind of bum-like characters, but then they tell stories about them, and they make these films. So these are the characters in this room. And it just was really kind of a stunning way of portraying them. The repetition of the same body, but different old clothes. It was interesting anyway. This was a really kind of strange exhibit, but these really almost classically painted panels were mounted on walls that moved. So you walked in and they moved very slowly, so it took you a while, and you know, you're going through, it's like going through Art Basel. You gotta see, and you get to the point where you're burning out, you gotta go, oh, I gotta take a break, you know, and then go back. But this one, you know, it was kind of strange. I mean, it was interesting to see the walls move. This was really an interesting one, I thought, and I have a real hard time with guns in our society right now anyway, but I started taking photographs thinking of it, oh man, I could use this for my drawings. You know, gun shells everywhere, you know, and make a point of something, you know, and then I thought, gosh, the sound, you just have to listen to it. And this guy, what does he say about it? He said, the contents are taken away so the container becomes the contents. You can hear the crunching of walking on it. So walking on it was uncomfortable. He came up with this idea when he was in a shooting range in Pennsylvania, walking on the shells. So it really made a point, you know. I mean, this guy, Giuseppe Pennoni, Matrice di Linfa, he took a tree, it's a fir tree, and he sawed it in half, and he opened it like a book. And then he carved out from the inside where the tree would have been when it was 80 years old. That's the line where the tree would have been when it was 80 years old. And then he filled it with vegetable resin. And what's really interesting about this is the size of it and the fact that kids and families were interacting with it. And there was leather laid out on the floor, and it just took your breath away to even walk in the room. It's just huge. Oh, and this guy's a character. Does anybody know who Jim Shaw is? He's from Michigan, and this is the capital, Viscera, Guts and Appliances mural. And these are theatrical backdrops. Now, I took this with my iPhone, so it's a pano shot. This is his reaction to the 2008 elections, which were pretty awful. And yeah, so I guess he's really interested in comic books. Here's another one of his drawings I thought was interesting. You know, it's kind of nicely done and kind of weird. And so he uses murals he's really uneasy with the way social consumerism goes. And so you'll see things like weird appliances flying through the air and stuff like that. He's kind of like a comic book guy. So interesting, crazy artist. Okay. I do a lot of walking when I travel, so I thought you might be interested in seeing the town hall. A little different than Italy. These are called cantons, these symbols, and they're on everybody's license plate, and it's like a district. This is Basel-Stadt, this district, so interesting. Basel's known for pharmaceutical and chemical companies. You know, they all kind of gather there. And start seeing faces, kind of like a Bruegel face here and there, a little dragon. The dragon is a symbol. They're just great, heads looking down at you. And it was World Cup weekend. The playoffs were happening, so you can just imagine what would happen after the lights went down. It was one big beer fest, and these are the love locks on the bridge over the Rhine. Love locks are all through Europe. The tradition is to paint your lock with your lover and lock it on something together and throw the key in the river. So your love will be forever. Paris is full of them. Everywhere I went, they were there. Here's the beginning of World Cup night. It's a nice little town, very different from Italy. There's the bridge. And the Rhine. That's the first night I was there. And here are people swimming in the Rhine. And I was telling Ellie that, did you know about the little bubbles that they have? And she goes, no. Well, they have these plastic bubbles. They put their clothes in, and they're on a stick, so they take their clothes off and jump in the Rhine, and then they float down the Rhine, and they jump out of the Rhine, and they put their clothes back on. So that's what that is. Here's the Fondation Beyeler. So the second day I was there, I went to Unlimited and this. I got on the tram and went out to the Beyeler. And of course, I'm sure that you all know who Gerhard Richter is. He's amazing. But once again, looking at the work in specific places sometimes is really amazing. Like, is it you that told me that sometimes he makes work for a specific place? Yeah. This is a beautiful, beautiful venue. He does painted over photographs and then large abstract paintings. Beautifully done, gorgeous. And you get a sense of the rooms with the lines down the floor. It just created a sense of space that complemented his work so nicely. And close-ups of his paintings. Beautiful, beautiful texture. This is a woman I met at my hotel, and she's really cool. Esther Neumann. She's from Germany, and she's a photographer, and she travels all over the world with her very expensive camera and stands in the water and moves it around. and takes maybe 5 pictures. And then she doesn't use Photoshop. She prints them really, really big and sells them. She was doing very well there. I just thought I'd show you some of her work because I think it's so incredible. This is the Indian Ocean. I think she went there, and she said it takes her a long time to think about what she's doing. I think, you only take 5 photographs? I would have taken 700, you know? And, very abstract, very, very large, too. So I thought she was a very interesting lady. We had breakfast together and dinner. So that's kind of the nice thing about traveling, too, especially places like that. You meet a lot of different people. And arrivederci. Thank you.